Hi, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is Ronda Cobb, the money coach. And as I'm going to do this show, I want you to know that this is something, and you're going to be able to tell I feel pretty passionately about because it's totally preventable. So I want you to know that if you've got a notepad or you want to grab one real quick, you may want to take notes in case this has ever happened to you. And I'm going to give you my email address right here at the front end because if you have an issue with this issue, you may need to get some help resolving it. So that's rcmoneycoach@gmail.com. Now, if you're a regular listener, and thank you so much if you are, because we wouldn't be here without you, that you might remember we recently did a show with Dr. Bill Hennessy on reducing medical bills by being a better shopper. And that's an important thing to remember. But this time around, we're going to delve into an equally difficult discussion, and it needs aired because I see so much stuff, I'll call it, out there on social media and mainstream media, and I feel like you're being somewhat misled. So, you know me, I'm not much into misleading people. I like it straight and I like it factual. So, I'm going to do all I can to be straight and factual, and I'll apologize in advance if I hurt anybody's feelings, but there are a couple of y'all out there that might need to wake up and smell the coffee. So today we're going to talk about surprise medical bills and what you, yes, you can do to combat them. Now, why are we going through this exercise? Well, because thousands of us are drowning in debt that we didn't sign up for. Bills in the tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars from nonprofit and or religious and or teaching medical facilities that contract with doctors outside of the network that the facility itself is in. How stupid are they? Oh, wait, sorry. I mean, how can they do this? So I'm trying to keep it non political, and I just want to give you helpful tips to combat this crisis in healthcare management. And yes, it is a crisis in management, a crisis of not really caring, a crisis of greed, a crisis of passing the burden of their responsibility, and a crisis of simply not thinking in a logical pattern. So let's, for everybody that's not sure what it is, you've heard a lot about it, but what exactly is a surprise medical bill? Well, the best way I can describe it is to give you a pretend patient named Fred Stone. He's a cousin of Fred Flintstone. Remember that character? And he goes to the hospital for surgery. And the hospital and the surgeon are both in Fred's health insurance network. So Fred does what he's told to do. He shows up at the hospital at the appointed time, thinking all is well. He gives them his insurance card, goes and gets in surgery. Little does Fred know, the entire surgery team is not made up of hospital employees or practitioners that have a contract with his insurance company's network. After the surgery, and Fred's one of the lucky ones because he doesn't have any complications, doesn't get an infection, no one made any mistakes, so he's fine there. He goes home to recover. The next thing you know, old Fred's a debtor due to the practitioners who worked in the OR with his surgeon and sent spectacular bills for their fees because they were, you guessed it, out of network. And typical among these are anesthesiologists and specialists that read specific tests or analyze biopsies. Or a second scenario for a surprise medical bill, and these are the true humdingers, is the surgeons in network and they set up the surgery at the hospital of their choice. Well, I go here. This is where I want to do it. The patient goes, hands over their insurance card, and no one says a word to them about being out of network. No one provides them with an advanced billing notification, also known as an ABN, to let the patient know that they are outside their network and they're going to get a gigantic bill. And no one is honest enough to send the patient to the network hospital for the surgery, even if it's right down the street. So now the entire bill is the patient's burden. The only part of it that's in network is the surgeon. All the rest of it, the hospital, the supplies, the OR fee, the anesthesiologist, the biologist that does the test, and so on and so on and so on, all becomes the patient's burden. And you want to know what? This is all preventable. That's why it's so ridiculous. These surprise medical bills are horrendous. Now, taken to its end game, the hospital, and a lot of them are nonprofits and or religious nonprofits or practitioner bills the patient. So the patient doesn't have thousands of dollars on hand or tens of thousands as the case may be, but they thought that the insurance would cover it because they did what they were told to do. So they don't pay it because they're like, but I have insurance. Why do I owe this? I have insurance. So then the provider writes off the debt and takes the tax deduction for bad debts. Right after they do that, they sell the debt. Who do they sell it to? Even though it's written off and it's no longer a debt, they sell it to a debt collector. They don't pay any taxes on any of it. The debt collector then reports it to the credit bureau. So here we are with ruined credit and a great big bill for a debt that was zeroed out by the hospital or practitioner that was totally preventable because all they had to do was send you to a hospital that was in your network. Groovy, huh? Not. So when the patient doesn't pay, the debt collector lets that sit there on the credit bureau and waits until it's aged. So 4 or 5 years go by. In 6 years, by law, it has to fall off your credit report. So what happens before that happens? Just as it's good and well aged, the debt collector says, well, they're not going to pay it. I'm going to sell it. So they sell it to a different debt collector. You get another negative bump on your credit report for the same non existent, completely preventable debt. And it stays open on your credit report for another 6 long years. By now, you've lost well over 100 points on your FICO score. And this is all a shame, a total, absolute shame. And I deal with this fairly much daily in helping my clients. And if you can't tell from my tone of voice and my choice of words, it's making me kind of mad. Can you tell? I'm sorry. But it's preventable. So the medical provider's excuse is that they serve everyone. Well, guess what? That's a little bit nonsensical because they know when people are in the network, they can read an insurance card as good as I can. And they know when they send a $50,000 plus bill to someone who is not in network, what havoc they are initiating. And they know it's going to go straight to that person's credit report and destroy their credit for years on end. So if they were truly following the Hippocratic Oath and doing no harm, or if they were truly serving everyone, and if they were truly fulfilling their mission or being religious, they do the right thing and send the patient to an in network provider, or they would provide services at an affordable price, and they would not be putting people in these positions. And it's so, so sad. Now, I told you at the beginning I was going to tell you what you can do. So thank you for asking. What can one person do? Ha! Here's what you can do. And I'm not telling you this is easy, but you can do it. An ounce of prevention goes a long way. Prevention. Okay? So when you are being referred to a specialist or to a surgeon, you need to ask your good questions on the front end. Don't wait until after the fact. Please ask on the front end. How necessary is this? Is it necessary? Or are we just covering our bases to rule this out? Because why spend money if you don't really feel like you have to? But once you've decided to accept their advice and you've decided that, okay, this really is necessary, we're not fooling around, then double check. Make sure they're in your network and get it in writing. And then and only then make the appointment with the specialist or the surgeon. When you get to the appointment, give the receptionist your insurance card because that's what the first thing she's going to ask you for. And tell her you need a photocopy of what's called a pre authorization. Now, anytime that you are going to spend a lot of money with medical insurance, the insurance carrier does what's called a pre authorization. And they give this pre authorization number to the surgeon's office. You want a copy of that. That way, you know that they double checked that they're in network and that this particular procedure is covered. So you're going to get this on the front end. All right. If the receptionist says, we don't do that, we won't know until we submit it, or something similar, politely call the 800 number on the back of your insurance card. That's what it's there for. And a really cool, well informed customer service representative will help you. And they'll tell you whether or not this person is in network and if they're going to get the pre authorization. So do a little of this on your own. Take ownership and control. Make sure that they're in your network. Unless, of course, you're in the emergency room, that's a whole different story. If you are unconscious or in the middle of a heart attack or stroke, to hell with the network, get the care you need, right? But when you are not in that situation, you need to know they're a network. You need to know how much it's going to cost. You need to know what your copay is, if any, and you want a written estimate. All right? So you need to get that. And now, if it's surgery, you need to know that every single person on your case is going to be in your network because you don't want to pay more than you have to pay. You've been spending all this money on your insurance premium. Let's use it wisely. All right. And document all that you can so that you can clearly show that you tried to make sure they were in network. Get most of it in writing because they'll tell you any old thing to get you in there. All right. So you want to know that they're in your network and you want it in writing. Now, at this point, someone somewhere is going to complain and they're going to say, you are a difficult patient and you should just sign the release that says they can charge you whatever they want. You do not have to sign that release. You have the right to get an estimate, a disclosure of your copay, and to know if the provider is in your network. And if enough of you take the 5 minutes to ask for this, the idiots in management might wake up and realize people are tired of going bankrupt over their multi-million-dollar lifestyles and their bad business practices. And before you sign any admittance form in the hospital, I want you to write on it very clearly that it in your own handwriting above your signature that says, I do not authorize care from any entity that is not covered